Hello, everyone. Welcome into episode 39 of the Four Quarters podcast powered by Four Quarters Media. I'm your host, Tyler Bennett, here with you once again. Episode 39 marks the start of our season 2 finale week. And before we get into the interviews and everything else, small error, I guess, on my end, a lack of realization, if you will. I use Adobe After Effects to put everything together. Realized it only allows you to do 3 hours max in a video. That doesn't cut it for this week's episodes. So we had to adjust on the fly. We're going to release each interview in its own parts 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, whatever the day brings. So it's all going to be one kind of feature show. You're going to hear this intro on every one of episode 39's interviews, so apologies in advance. But all the content is going to be there for you. You can pick and choose who you want to listen to at any given time and go from there. We start off on episode 39. We go with CCAA Men's Basketball Spotlight Show. On all 4 days this week, Monday to Thursday, we are going cross country, men's and women's basketball, talking to as many guests, as many coaches as we can. And on the men's basketball show today, 4 of the 5 leagues will be represented. We unfortunately had all of our media requests to the RSEQ in Quebec go unanswered, which is fine, which is okay. No hard feelings at all by any means. 2020 has been a year. Things happen, things come up. People aren't in the office. People aren't even working at the moment. Who knows what circumstances the individuals are under that I reached out to. We'll continue to try and get more Quebec content on the podcast in season 3 when the new year rolls around. But still, 4 fantastic guests on the CCAA Men's Basketball Spotlight Show. And depending on which episode you're on right now, you're going to have a fantastic guest to listen to. In part 1, we start on the East Coast in the ACAA. We chat with St. Thomas Tommy's men's basketball head coach, John Hickey. We look at everything from his career coming back to St. Thomas. We look at the lengthy high school career he's had at Leo Hayes prior to returning to St. Thomas, where he was a student to start with and then came back to obviously coach the men's basketball program. We looked at his transition, how it's been taking over the program, and kind of what went into last season into his coaching approach and how he adjusted to life as a head coach at the collegiate level. If you're on part 2, you're going to hear from Lambton Lions men's basketball head coach James Grant from the OCAA, a person I work with either right next door or right down the hall, depending where we are on any given day. We look at the basketball community in Sarnia-Lambton, and we look at how over time and throughout history that's become more and more ingrained in generations of families all across the city and the county, for that matter. And we looked at what that means to Coach Grant, to the men's basketball program at Lambton, and Lambton College as a whole. And he started the interview with a unique arrival story of one Mike Lucier. And we talked about how Lucier went from one of the more unique entrances on day 1 of tryouts to closing his 5-year career as arguably one of the best to ever wear a Lambton jersey. So that was an interesting story. And then if you're on part 3 right now, you'll be hearing from NAIT Ooks men's basketball head coach Slav Kornik. Coach Slav and I, we discussed his journalism career, which followed his time at NAIT as a student, similar career trajectory, if you will, as Coach Hickey out of St. Thomas. We looked at Coach Kornik's return to NAIT and how his adjustment went with returning to the institution where he was a student, and how the dynamic has changed for him now coming back as a head coach for the program that he played for as a student athlete. And we also looked at the challenges and the positives that came with taking over the men's basketball program at NAIT, where he sees the program going and kind of what he wants the program to embody on a daily basis. And then if you're on part 4, you're going to hear from our Pac West featured guest, head coach Cassidy Kannemeyer from the Capilano Blues. Coach Kannemeyer makes his return to the podcast. He was on back on June 8th as we opened season 2, actually. So it's been a few months since Coach Kannemeyer has been on the show. We had a lot of optimism the first time around that there would be some sort of 2019 or 2020-21 season, if you will. That's not the case anymore. So we can do a follow-up, if you will, with Coach Kannemeyer. We look at kind of what the last 5 months have been like for him, how things have gone with the team, with the recruiting class. They've announced more recruits since we last talked, so he gave us a rundown on all the new faces that the Blues have this year and just kind of what they're hoping for in the new year when it comes to workouts, to player development, to a new season in 2021-22. We just follow up on the first episode and pick up where we left off and just had a great chat, all in all. So whether you're on part 1 or part 3 right now, or part 4 or part 2, you're in for a good interview. Let's just say that. There's a lot of information, a lot of nuggets of wisdom from the coaches, none of which come from me. I just want to clarify that now. If you're coming into this expecting some sort of wisdom from myself, sorry to disappoint. You are here for the wrong reason, because I leave that to the trained professionals. But with that all said, let's jump right in to whatever part of episode 39 that you are on now, between myself and the guest listed on the subject line of this episode. Enjoy. All right, so now thrilled to be joined by our ACAC men's basketball featured guest on our Cross Canada Spotlight show for men's basketball from the NAIT Ooks, head coach Slav Kornik. Coach, first off, I want to thank you again for doing this. We talked a bit before we came on. How are things with everything out there with yourself, family, the team? How's life out in Alberta right now for you?
Yeah, definitely a different type of season, that's for sure. We've just been training, getting on the court 3 days a week since September, but obviously with the announcement of our season officially being canceled a few weeks ago, it's a lot different. As I was mentioning before we got on air, just a lot more time with my family, which has been a benefit, but certainly just a different type of season. So
I think this year, with how everything's played out since March, we've had a lot more time with family. And I think it's kind of shown us a bit more of what's important in life. It's kind of put a lot of things back into perspective. But like we said too, like you would just be coming off a Friday, Saturday game, getting ready for next Friday, Saturday's games. Like this is the busy time of year in a season. And now there's nothing. It's just 3 days a week as opposed to every day you're after it for 6-7 weeks.
For sure. Yeah. This would, like we were saying, this would be, definitely the busiest time. You're playing your games Friday, Saturdays, prepping for the next week, starting practice on Monday, and it's just kind of go. But I have a 3-year-old son, so it's been nice to be able to spend a lot more time with him. And I'm kind of looking at it. This might be my only opportunity for a long time where I have this much free time with him during, in November. So I'm kind of trying to focus on the positive right
Right.
now.
Yeah. The weekends are usually a write-off from about September through to March.
Yeah.
Now they are, the time is abundance. There's an abundance of time. So you just kind of use it, and whatever he wants to do on a weekend, you're probably doing it just because, like you said, this will be the last time for a while that you'll have this much free time.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I don't know what the weather's like out there for you guys, but we just got our first kind of snowfall too in Ontario. And this is just, it's too early for snow.
Yeah. Oh,
And
really?
it just piles up. And I mean, it's one thing after another this year, but I mean, the winter depression comes early now. I'm like, it's a bad
Yeah.
combination.
Yeah, we actually had we had a very mild October for us anyway. We had no
Mm-hmm.
snow,
Okay.
really, not that I could remember. And then up until early part of November, actually like 2 weeks ago, we were at like 16, 17 degrees here for a couple of
Wow.
days, which is super mild for us. And then the snow came, and now we have a bunch of snow, but it's it's like 0 to -5 here. So for
That's
us, it's not too bad. So
no.
we've been able to go outside a decent amount, take the little guys sledding and things like that, which has been
Right.
kind of nice. So yeah, for us, it's not bad, but definitely kind of heading in the heart of winter here. So I'm sure I
Right.
won't be feeling the same way in a month or two when we're like in December and January. I'll just be hoping that spring's coming. So yeah.
The snow's not necessarily the bad part. It's when that temperature gets like -10, -20, -30. Like
Yeah.
0 is, and snow, that's my speed. Anytime it gets like you're cold, and then it just takes the fun out of sledding or
Yeah.
realistically anything outside.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
kind of the
yeah.
best
When
of
it's like
both worlds.
for sure, when it's 0 -5 around there, you can at least go outside and do a
Right.
few things. Once it starts getting like -20, then you're just like stuck inside the house all day, which isn't fun.
I mean, we've been stuck inside enough as it is for the last 7 months. I mean, give us a little bit of something here, and snow in -5 is, I guess, the positive we can take from this. Then, I mean, gets us outside a bit longer than normal. I'll take it any
Yeah,
day of the week.
for sure.
Want to start it off looking at kind of your career, because obviously returning to NAIT, but before that, you graduated from NAIT in '05, which I found out before. I had it as '02. An article steered me in the wrong direction. Um, for you, obviously graduated from radio and television, you spent 15 years before coming back to NAIT in the industry.
Mhm.
What was that? What was day-to-day life like for you as a journalist? Because obviously you started out as a sports reporter in Lloydminster and Red Deer, did some online news, and then ended on the morning show on Global Edmonton.
Yeah,
What was kind of your career like in those 15 years in the journalism industry as a whole?
yeah. It was. I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I started off in Lloydminster. I did my practicum there, and then got hired on there, and had like 2 or 3 different positions. I ended up as a sports reporter and anchor. My
Mhm.
last position there was anchoring the late night sports and reporting. I liked it too. Lloydminster has a Lakeland College out there, so I was
Right.
able to cover the ACAC. So I was just kind of finishing playing at that point, but
Okay.
then I got right into like covering the league and everything, which was great. So I spent close to 2 years in Lloydminster, went to Red Deer, spent about 3 years there working in the
Right.
sports department, ended up as a sports director, anchoring and reporting as well. And same type of thing. They have Red Deer College out there. So I was
Mhm.
covering, ACAC as well over there. So I really enjoyed it. I just have a passion, obviously, for sports, and
Right.
was able to cover it as a reporter and kind of learn the ins and outs of journalism and hone my skills in that industry. So it was great. And then unfortunately, the station in Red Deer kind of shut down.
Right.
So we all ended up getting laid off. So I was one of the
Yikes.
last ones there.
Mhm.
And then I ended up getting hired on at Global Edmonton. I've spent about 10 years at Global, and did a
Wow.
few things. I was a news reporter there originally, and did some producing, kind of did a bunch of different things early on for a couple of years, and then got hired on in the online department. And they, I guess, kind of created a position for me, doing on-air hits for the morning news, and
Okay.
working in the online department and as well, like writing stories basically for online, doing everything that entails
Mhm.
working in the online department. So I had kind of a bit of a hybrid position, and did
Right.
that for about 7 years before I got on at NAIT, and Global is great. I still do some casual work there now to
Okay.
this day, actually.
Right.
And I really enjoy it. I really enjoy writing. I like
Mm-hmm.
reporting. So I have nothing but good things for the most part
Right.
to say about my career in media. So
What was it that first got you into journalism and kind of the radio reporting side of everything? Like, was it something you wanted to do as a kid growing up, or was it something that kind of seemed more interesting as you kind of moved along in school and started to figure out what it was that you were really interested in?
yeah, I actually never really thought about it as a career growing up. To be honest with you, I finished high school at O'Leary here in Edmonton, and then decided to go to NAIT. Mark DeBell kind of recruited me, so I just love basketball. I knew I wanted to play basketball, but
Right.
really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life after that.
Okay.
So I went to NAIT and did some upgrading, took a few classes,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I knew about the RTA program at NAIT, like I heard of it, knew about it. And then once I was at NAIT for a couple of years, again, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life, I just started thinking like, well, I love sports. I love playing basketball.
Right.
Figured, okay, maybe I could be a sports reporter, that sort of thing. It seemed like a natural kind of, or just something that I would actually enjoy doing
Right.
with my career. So that's kind of where it started. And then I started looking into the program at NAIT and talking to people within the program, and then eventually got into it that way. So it was really my passion for sports, for basketball, that led me in that direction
Right.
originally.
I
Yeah.
think whenever I hear stories like that, like people not really sure kind of what they want to do, and then they have a passion for sport, and then I always think back to my undergrad, like the first day we were at Brock, and they asked 180 first years what they wanted to do with sport, and 90, I'd say 80% of them said they wanted to work with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and then they said afterwards, prepare for that to change because sport can literally take you anywhere, and reporting is one of those things. They may not realize it at the time. They may come in like you, not really know what they want to do, and then sport has a footprint in pretty much any industry you want, and it's always cool to see how people end up taking the path they did. And for yourself being in journalism, I think it's fascinating. 15 years later you
Yeah.
figured out what you wanted to do, and it kind of played out.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, when I first started, I did all, sports exclusively, and then eventually got on the news side, and I kind of ended
Right.
up venturing into online, which isn't something that I ever thought about doing. When I started my career, I was very much focused on, I wanted to get to a Sportsnet or TSN and work there. That
Right.
was my ultimate dream. But as you get a little bit older, and I was working in the industry, I started gaining more of a passion of covering like news as well.
Right.
I ended up kind of venturing off into that. So it is true, because I do actually remember being at NAIT. Like we had a Sportsnet seminar when I was at NAIT in the
Okay.
RTA program, where every year they would bring people from Sportsnet from out east, and we'd have this like weekend seminar there. And I remember them saying, like, a lot of you probably have dreams and hopes of working at TSN or Sportsnet, but as you kind of progress through your career, a lot of you will venture off and that sort of thing. So certainly it's happened with me.
Yeah. I think you just have to have that. You have to essentially take the blinders off. You can't have that narrow focus of this is what I'm going to do and nothing else is a possibility, because sometimes it does work out that way where you do get your dream Sportsnet job, but it's few and far between, and especially early on. So you kind of have to have that mindset of take what comes and kind of grow and learn, or else if you have a narrow focus, there's a lot I think that's going to pass you by that you might not have realized that you enjoyed, like yourself with the normal news, I guess you want to call it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, sometimes people's career paths aren't a straight line. So you maybe you end up where you want to be, but it just might not go in the straight kind of direction that you initially planned. You might kind of, take a little bit of a turn here and there through your career, and maybe one day you end up where you want it to be, but it wasn't the exact path that you thought. So
I would be astonished if anybody had a straight A to B I don't know if I don't think anybody would have
Yeah.
unless you made it yourself, unless you started something from scratch. A to B straight on never usually happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. I haven't known, I haven't known too many people, if anybody, that's really done that. So.
For those individuals who obviously have a dream of working in radio, television, maybe Sportsnet, TSN down the road, what are some of the more unique challenges that you have to face in the journalism industry that they may not realize going through school that you've had to overcome?
I think for me, like, through my experience and just being around other people who obviously have worked in the industry, I think it is a tough industry. Like, you have to accept the fact, for the large majority of us, when you start, you're not going to make a lot of money, so you have to accept that. Like, it's going to be tough. Like, if you're going to school and thinking you're going to come out and make whatever, like, really comfortable living, for most of us, that's not going to happen. So you kind of have to be okay with that early on and just kind of gain that experience. Just do it because you're passionate about it,
Right.
and because it's something that you really want to do, and kind of be okay with maybe not making the most money early on. Because I know a few people who have who I went to school with, for example, and they ended up moving on with their lives, which I think things worked out for some of them, but some of it was because of the money early. Like, if you're working in a small market in TV or radio, it's going to be a little bit challenging in terms of finances. And then the other aspect of it is, I think you just have to be open-minded, kind of along the lines of what we were just talking about. Like, when I worked in Lloydminster, I really wanted to be a sportscaster, but early on they said, well, no, you're going to shoot and cover news. And originally I was like, well, I don't really want to cover news, but you kind of have to be willing to do what they ask you. And they also had me doing news updates for their radio station as well, which isn't something I had like a lot of interest in at the time, but I was just willing to do whatever just to gain that experience. So I think, like, you have to have an open mind, be willing to do some things that maybe you initially weren't planning to do, or maybe aren't super passionate about, but just realize that it's all experience that you're gaining early on in your career, and kind of be open-minded about that. And just, I think early on is just about gaining the experience, putting things on your resume, getting better at your craft. That should be the main focus. If you're just focused on improving and getting better and gaining experience, then that's probably the best advice I can get. And if you're doing that, you're probably going in a good direction.
Right. And then kind of with that too, the experiences you get from the work that maybe you didn't think you were interested in at the start, who knows who you're going to meet and network with, and then that could open doors down the road that may get you into a closer trajectory to being the sportscaster or morning show host or whatever it is that you want to do. But again, you're not going to go from A to B straight through. You got to have to put in the work essentially, and take your bumps and do what's asked, and then essentially prove yourself, because especially for new graduates, you haven't really proven yourself to do anything yet. And when there's, for us, like at Brock, there's about 120 graduates with the same piece of paper at the end of the day. How do you differentiate yourself from the other 119 that are looking for the same job? You got to do those little things that help set you apart.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for me too, I mean, I graduated in 2005, so things have changed quite a bit since I graduated. I guess the other thing too is, I don't know what it is out east, but here in Alberta, usually when people graduate from NAIT, you do have to have a willingness to a willingness to move around a little bit. Like, there's not a lot of people coming out of NAIT who get jobs in Edmonton at like a Global Edmonton or CTV, especially if you're looking to do kind of more on-air stuff. You have to typically gain some experience in some smaller markets. So that's a thing too for us out here anyway. I don't know if it's like that in every part of the country, but like, just a willingness to move around, and kind of an understanding that might be something you have to do as well. Although now I think, like, I mean, there are a lot more opportunities, even with your podcast as an example. Like, there are opportunities to kind of create your own path in some ways too, or just talking about experience. Like, I mean, it's a lot easier, I think, these days to
Mm-hmm.
if you're wanting to do sports eventually, that sort of thing, like starting your own podcast, just to kind of gain that experience of being on air and interviewing people and creating your
Right.
own show and that sort of thing. So there are a lot more opportunities now, I feel like, than maybe when I originally graduated
Right.
to that experience. You could kind of create your own experience, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, like there's a lot of opportunity where there's a lot of creative freedom now, I think, with social media and the resources that we have now at our disposal to essentially create your own path and kind of differentiate yourself from others without, maybe you're not comfortable moving away or go into a smaller city to kind of prove yourself at the start. You can have a few more options to build that resume and gain some self-taught experience. Like I know for myself, when I started this with NCAA, I guess 7 years ago in undergrad, it was just because my wife was sick of hearing me talk to her about basketball. So really it's just for me to talk to someone else. And a lot of my experience now is kind of self-generated because of that. And yeah, it's a little tough to put yourself out there sometimes, but at the same time, if you want to make it in an industry, you kind of have to do those things that make you uncomfortable to better yourself.
For sure, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I said, if you want to be on air, especially early on, you're gonna have to be okay. I don't know, just kind of learning your craft and maybe being a little bit embarrassed. Like I guess
Yeah.
as an example, like when I started on air doing sports, I mean, I would look at some of my casts afterwards and be like, oh my goodness, like, I wasn't that good to start. So you kind of have
Right.
to be okay being a little bit, I don't know, just putting yourself out there, like you
Right.
said, and making mistakes. But it's all, again, about getting better and learning your craft and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. No one is perfect at it, whatever they do on day one. Like
yeah.
that's why you see news bloopers to this day of veteran newscasters and reporters that mess up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't laugh at yourself afterwards and be like, oh, like this actually happened, I mean, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. And, everybody has mistakes, everybody has off days. You just learn from it and move on. But it also kind of breaks up the tension or the seriousness, because it is a little bit funny at the end of the day when you see someone of years of experience make an error. And as a new person in the industry, that's got to kind of make you feel a bit better because you see them having this resume of experience. They make mistakes as well, just the same as you would.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So while you were working full time in journalism, you kind of kept a foot in basketball because, like you said, sports were always your passion. Basketball, whatever it was you wanted to do, something in basketball. So you've had various positions over the years, including assistant coach at U of A, at Archbishop O'Leary, your high school as well. You were a head coach at Strathcona High School, and you've had roles with Basketball Alberta and Canada Basketball. How did you balance everything from full-time working in news to having a foot in basketball, helping out with different programs, plus kind of life away from everything too, with family and whatnot? How were you able to kind of balance everything and keep a foot in basketball with everything else going on?
Well, I guess there was a couple of things that allowed me to do it to begin with. One, my wife has been super understanding and
Okay.
supportive.
Right.
I've been with my wife since I was playing basketball at NAIT.
Okay.
Actually, we first started dating when I was like 20. So
Okay.
she knew me. She was with me when I was playing. So that kind of she understands my passion for the game.
Right.
And then my job at Global was kind of a 4:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon type shift.
Yeah.
Because I was on the early morning and stuff. So it was a super early shift, but it actually turned out to be a great thing, which, like, if I didn't have that shift, I don't know if I would have ever started coaching just because of the time. Like, I was getting off early in the morning, which allowed me to, early in the afternoon, which
Right.
allowed me to help out at O'Leary because, they would practice in the afternoon, that sort of thing. So I was done my work day at that point. So Yeah, I mean, I was getting up 3:45 in the morning, and I then quickly getting ready and going to work and working my shift at Global. And then when I started at O'Leary and was coaching at Scona, we normally practice at like 3:30 after school, and then
Okay.
had late afternoon, early evening type thing. So, during the high school basketball season,
Mhm.
I was doing that. It was just super busy. Kind of finish my day, go get a workout in, go to basketball practice, and come home, and maybe, when I was coaching at Scona, do a practice plan in the evening for the next day. And that was kind of my day. I got my communications degree online during that time too. So I was like,
Jesus. Okay.
online degree. So during my lunch breaks at Global, I was like spending the hour doing school. And then after I got home in the evening, I was doing some schoolwork as well. So I was just not sleeping a lot. I think that was one of the main things too. I was going to bed late and sleeping a few hours all the time. So I
Right.
was tired. I just remember being tired a lot. That's all I remember.
Jeez. Like that.
Uh,
That's a lot going on.
yeah, it was definitely challenging. And then in the summertime, I started helping out with Basketball Alberta as well.
Hmm.
I did have a few years where I was I was working in TV and not really involved in basketball
Right.
at all. And then actually one evening I went to watch O'Leary play Harry Ainley here in
Hmm.
a playoff game, and my old teammate of mine was coaching O'Leary at the time, so I just went to watch the game, and I don't know, just kind of hit me that I wanted to get involved in coaching at that time, so I did. But the one thing I really wanted to focus on once I got into coaching was just kind of surrounding myself with people who I thought were really knowledgeable, and just
Hmm.
gaining that experience and learning. Like, I just got really passionate about it, so I
Hmm.
wanted to be involved with Basketball Alberta because I played on the provincial team one year when I was playing.
Okay.
So I knew I wanted to get involved with the provincial team. So I got involved with Basketball Alberta and just
Hmm.
started helping them out as well in the summers. It was a great experience.
Hmm.
I did my kind of started doing my coaching certification as well through Canada Basketball and doing all that stuff. And I don't know, I just got passionate about it. I just wanted to do it all the time. So I was pretty much coaching 12 months out of the year, doing stuff with the Basketball Alberta provincial team. I did CP and their TAS programs in the
Hmm.
fall. I was doing high school, and then eventually went to U of A and did 2 years there as an assistant coach. And it was the same kind of deal there, where I was working at Global and
Yeah.
coaching U of A under Barnaby. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have a end. I never really thought of like ending up at NAIT, to be
Hmm.
honest with you. I was just kind of coaching and didn't really know where I would end up with it. And I mean, I still don't really know where I'm gonna end up. But I just did it because I got really passionate about it. And I mean, obviously, I was always passionate about basketball as a kid. So
Right.
um, yeah, that's kind of, but
Jeez.
it was a crazy few years for sure. Now, just kind of mainly coaching at NAIT, it's actually a lot easier for me. It was funny because when I got the job at NAIT, a lot of people are like, man, you're going to be really busy now. I'm like, I think
Yeah.
I'm going to be less busy than I was before I got the job at NAIT, because at least now I can largely focus on
Right.
coaching.
Jeez. Yeah. So usually when you take over a college program, yeah, it's busy nonstop. But I mean, compared to what you're used to, this is a walk in the park. I mean, you get full, probably maybe not full night's sleep, but you get more sleep in a day, and you're not going 3:45 wake up calls. Like that's a lot. That's a lot
Yeah.
going on. But then trying to get, like you said, communications degree on top of that.
Yeah. It's I ended
Jeez.
up finishing my communications degree. It's funny because I ended up finishing it like the month our son was born. So the timing of it worked out really well, because I finished the degree and then became a dad like
Jeez.
immediately, which was great because I don't know how I would have finished
No.
it if, kind of overlapped even
Jeez.
uh, with my son being born. So
Right.
yeah.
Like I'm tired. I'm tired for you just thinking of like 3:45, 9 hours at Global or the news, and then practice, and then home,
Yeah.
whatever else you got to do, and then sleep for 4 hours, and then let's do it all over again.
Yeah.
It's just nonstop. But I guess that's kind of, it's one of those things, like the price kind of have to pay to kind of get in the industry, or when you discover what you're passionate about, you want to do it as much as you can to, gain that experience. And if sleep is the one thing that goes, takes a hit, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that made it easier for me as well was just that, like, when I'd wake up in the morning, I was going to Global. It's not like I was going to a job I didn't like. Like,
Right.
I
That's
really
true.
enjoyed my job at Global, and same thing with the
Right.
coaching. Like, I was doing things that I really enjoyed doing, so it was a lot easier. Like, my dad was a journeyman insulator. He insulated at like upgrader plants and in Fort McMurray for a long time, and I actually did that job for a few months when I was younger.
Yeah.
In the summer, and I always use that experience as good motivation, because when I would wake up and be exhausted, I'm like, at least I'm not going to insulate. That's what I was like. That was what would go through my mind sometimes, which would help me kind of wake up in the morning and get up and do it, because I did not enjoy that job. But so I was always kind of mindful of that. Was at least I'm getting to do what I enjoy. So
that makes it a lot easier when you're like, work's fun or you enjoy it. The people you work with, you don't really realize you're tired until you get home, and then you're okay, this is like, it's catching up. But then you wake up the next day and you're excited to go to work, or you're excited to go wherever it is you're going. Makes things a lot easier. But if you dread work, we all have those days. Like, there's days you don't want to go, and no matter what's going on. But overall, if you enjoy it, it's going to make it a lot easier.
for sure. Yeah.
So then for you, obviously, having spent time at NAIT as a player and a student, and then you go into journalism 15 years, and then you come back to NAIT. What was it like for you the first time walking those halls again, but this time as a staff, as a head coach, as opposed to a student? Was that kind of like a weird feeling for you?
Oh yeah. It was definitely odd. Yeah, it was just a weird feeling. Like, you're going back to a place where I have great memories of NAIT. Like, I really enjoyed my time in the RTA program and playing basketball, obviously, and everything. Right. I love my time at NAIT. So it was awesome going back there, but the feeling of it's a much different feeling now being there as the head coach than it was as a player. Just different. I'm a lot older, obviously. Like, I finished playing my last year was 2004 on the men's basketball team there. So obviously I started there in 2019, I guess it was. So, it's quite a bit of time that passed by between the time I finished with the program to being a head coach there. So yeah, just a lot different feeling. It took some getting used to, for sure. Probably took the entire first season, to be honest with you. Like, it wasn't until this past spring, once the first season wrapped up, because the first season, like, from the time I got hired to the end of the first season, it just was a whirlwind. Like, it felt like it just kind of went by in a blink of an eye. And it wasn't until the first season passed by that I actually started feeling like, I don't know, like the head coach of the NAIT men's basketball team, and it started going to NAIT, started becoming normal, I guess. And I kind of got used to being back there. And obviously COVID hit, and now I really wasn't there at all in the spring and summer, just because NAIT got shut down. And now I'm only going there to train 3 days a week, so I'm not in the office there at all right now. But yeah, it was, to answer your question, is an unusual feeling, especially being gone that way. It is different there now, being the head coach, than it was as a student and a player. But slowly, as time passes by, you start getting more and more comfortable with it, and becomes kind of normal.
Did you remember kind of where you needed to go the first time you came back, or did it feel like it was an entirely new school? Because obviously, I'm sure NAIT's changed a bit since you were there as a player and a student to now. But did it come back to you slowly that you knew, okay, I know where to go, like, this is such and such a building or whatever, or was it all kind of new again?
No, I knew. Yeah, no, I definitely knew where to go. And over the years, I have stayed kind of connected with the program. I'd go watch their games occasionally, and then I was also doing some emceeing for their athletic awards nights and things like that. Like, being alumni and working in media, they would have me come do their athletics awards nights. I did that a bunch of times. So I was around the school, but NAIT has definitely changed. Like the school's developed a lot. It's expanded a great deal. Where the gym is and where our offices are still kind of the older part
Okay.
of the school, but that has changed a ton. So I've actually really enjoyed it. It's neat to see how much the school has developed and changed. They have, I don't know how many new buildings now, like 2 or 3 new buildings. So it's been kind of neat to be able to walk through the school and see the development and everything that's gone on there. But yeah, it's also been neat to, the gyms, it's the same gym, but they have kind of revitalized. They got new floor and new hoops and new walls and everything in there as well. So that's been neat to see. So
obviously, like you said, coming back to NAIT, like it took you almost a full season to kind of have it almost sink in. Like this is now normal. Like I'm the head coach at NAIT for the men's basketball program. What were some of the challenges that kind of came with the role change? Obviously, with you returning, obviously trying to build your system, build the culture. Obviously, you're basically trying to instill what you want with the team. What were kind of some of those challenges that you had to overcome in that first year to kind of get it going the direction you wanted it to?
I think it's just, well, you're taking over a program, that was coached by somebody else, and you're trying to get to know the players. So like, I got hired on. I started in the beginning of May there. It's kind of a weird time too, because especially within the ACAC, like, we have players that aren't necessarily all from Edmonton, and then guys just finishing school. So when I got hired, everybody else just kind of finished school, and the school itself is kind of slowed down a lot. Like there aren't they have spring and summer classes there, but it's not nearly as busy. So I got hired on right when school kind of wrapped up, and a lot of the student athletes are either went back home or they're working. Like a lot of our student athletes have full-time jobs in the summer and whatnot, so they're busy with that. But I think the challenge is initially it was just kind of getting to know the players. Obviously, I kind of followed the program from a distance and knew, kind of what their record was the previous year and how things were going, but I didn't know a lot of the guys on the team. So just kind of getting to know the guys on the team and what's going on with the individual players, who's returning, who's not, what recruits were being brought in already. So initially, it was just kind of getting a grasp of that. There's a lot of like administrative things too. For example, we had 3 international athletes who were coming in 2 from the U.S. and 1 from France, who were coming to join the program. So it was kind of learning about international athletes and study visa, like student visas and all that kind of stuff, like how that works. So just other guys trying to get into their programs and trying to guide them and help them through that. And then at the same time, you're trying to learn how that process works, like how you can assist them or how you can guide them in terms of helping them with their schooling or like helping them apply for the program or things like that. So there's just a lot of administrative things. And then eventually with the basketball stuff, just my first plan was just creating a off-season schedule for the guys. And that's something I'm big on, like training all year round. Like when I played basketball, I played it all year round. I didn't play any other sports. I had no interest in playing other sports. So it was just kind of like first thing I did was create an off-season kind of training program for guys and making sure it also served as a good opportunity for me to get to know the guys. So, we'd come in the gym 2-3 days a week. We'd do some dry land training, some conditioning off the court, that sort of thing. So I would do it with them. I still kind of try to stay in shape and that sort of stuff. So served as a good opportunity for me to get to know the guys. But I think the biggest challenge in the first year is just, being a lead, like you're the leader of the program. You're expected to lead guys. And I went from being an assistant coach at U of A for 2 years where, I don't know, I found being an assistant, it's a pretty cozy position, to be honest with you. Like Barnaby largely led things. He'd kind of tell us what he expected us to do. And you would obviously be involved in the practices and watch videos and, help scout and that sort of thing. But you weren't, it's just a lot less responsibility as a head coach. You're the leader of the program. And with college players, it's just a lot that comes with it. You have 15, 16 different personalities. Once the season got going, guys have their own personal goals. So you're trying to balance their personal goals with what obviously as a head coach, you want to win, like you're trying to put together a team that can be competitive and that sort of thing. But there's always things that come up with players, whether it's off the court or on the court. So that was a challenge as well. Just trying to be a leader and help guys deal with things that they're dealing with in school or off the court. And then also, like I said, guys have their own individual goals and things like that. And like sometimes it goes against what you're trying to do as a coach. And then you're trying to implement your own schemes and systems and beliefs as a coach in terms of the way you think basketball should be played. And shockingly, not all your players agree with it. And they, you got to kind of try. I feel sometimes as a coach too, one thing that I've learned is you're almost as much of a salesman, as much as you are as a basketball coach. Like being able to know your stuff is important, but then get your players to buy into it and actually execute it on the court is more important almost than what you know. Because you can know everything in the world about basketball, but if you can't get guys to buy into it and actually try to do it on the court, almost all the knowledge you have is almost not pointless, but it almost is. And that was the biggest challenge. Like, I think that's still something I'm trying to get better at is how do I get guys to buy in? Like, I think the best basketball coaches in the world are obviously know their stuff, but also get players to buy into what they're trying to do. And that's something that I'm trying to get better at. And I think it's going to be a process for me for years. So, I think those were some of the biggest challenges, I would say.
I think, like you said too, there's a lot that goes into coaching that I don't think a lot of people on the outside realize. Like, it's not just basketball and that's it. Like, there's a lot of that behind the scenes, administrative, kind of just keeping guys, like just checking in on guys to make sure they're doing all right in school, in life in general. Like, there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes that lead up to the 2 hours that people see on a game. And that I don't think a lot of people realize takes up a lot more of the time than practices and the games, because obviously that's a big facet of the job. Obviously that's the main focus, being a head coach of a basketball team, but there's a lot of steps and a lot of things that need to be done, big or small, to kind of get everybody to buy in, or just to even just kind of be there first, and then kind of focus on that student part and then the athlete part as well. I think a lot goes into it that people don't realize.
Totally. I mean, that's the one thing I learned quickly was the on-court stuff is kind of the fun part. Like, definitely not saying I know, I'm the most knowledgeable coach in the world when it comes to X's and O's, but I have spent a lot of time at it. Like I said, I've been fortunate enough to be around some pretty intelligent basketball coaches and guys and ladies who know their stuff. So that wasn't the biggest challenge. It's just managing the personalities on your team, and all the other stuff that comes with them being student athletes and making sure they're taking care of their academics and things like that, and helping to motivate them and guide them. And there's all sorts of stuff, it's a 6-7 month season. There's going to be, sometimes there's issues within the team when certain players aren't getting along, or, sometimes it's not major. It could be just minor stuff, like stuff that happens on the court, but you're always trying to manage those things and, balance, like I said, just all sorts of off-court stuff, whether it's academics or people's personal life, or, guys sometimes coming late to practice. So now, you got to figure out what rule do you have for that, or a guy misses practice or whatever. Okay. How are you going to deal with that? Like, kind of setting rules and expectations within your program, and figuring out how you want to go about dealing with all those sorts of things. So for me personally, those have been the biggest challenges. It's not necessarily the basketball stuff. The basketball stuff is the fun part.
Right.
Everything else that comes with coaching, that's kind of the most stressful part. So,
and like you said too, there's 15, 16 personalities on a team, and majority of them are probably still teenagers, so they're still in that kind of younger mindset of, I'm gonna enjoy my college experience at the same time. But you can always there's always books and seminars and videos and whatever to teach you the X's and O's side of it. Dealing with the off court stuff and everything else is kind of team by team basis, because what so and so does at one team, like say what Luke Stevenson does at UKC on the East Coast, for example, is not going to work with what you do at NAIT. So there's no real kind of playbook on how to deal with everything off the court. So that's kind of what the stuff you have to learn on your own as you go and set rules as things happen, because who knows how things are going to unfold.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like the one thing I learned. There's so many things you can't like plan for that at least I couldn't. For example, there's times where you want like we have off-season training. We want guys to be there, but or like. But then I've had situations where guys have come to me and be like, listen, I can't come to training for the next 2 weeks. I have to work or else I can't pay for school for the second semester. Like I just had a situation like that recently. So how do you handle that? Because, you want, like, one thing I want is make sure guys are committed. They're showing up to practices every day. Like, to me, that's kind of the foundation. We need to be there. Like you can't be missing stuff. But then you have a player who comes to you and is like, well, I need to work. I need to go out of town and work for 2 weeks right now because I can't afford school in the second semester. And I didn't, that's something I never planned for. Or last year we had a situation where one of our players, his fiance was having a child, so he had to go back home.
Right.
Because they were about to have a kid, so he had to miss a really important weekend for us. And that's something that you don't plan for, and that's not. So you got to kind of learn to deal with. There's just all sorts of life. It's more the life situations that come up, especially with young men who are 18 to 24 in our case. Like there's all things that come up in their personal lives that that you can't really plan for as a head coach. You just kind of have to figure it out as it comes about. So
and it's obviously a good thing too, where they're willing and open enough to come to you and talk things through instead of just doing it on their own and say, yeah, I'm leaving this, like, I'll see you in 2 weeks. It's one thing that shows that they are committed in the character of the guys to be like, this is what I'm going through. This is why I'm being away for 2 weeks, as opposed to just leaving and kind of leaving everybody high and dry. But yeah, the human side of it all, like, you can't really plan for, because stuff is going to come up out of nowhere. And I mean, I think that's basketball or just anything in general. Like, I know the last 6 months, like, we've had health issues with my wife come up. And I mean, you just you have to take it as it comes, and you can plan for everything, but then life's going to throw you curveballs, as 2020 has. You just kind of you deal with it as it comes. And I mean, no matter how, like you said, no matter how well you can plan, it's still going to throw you for a loop sometimes. And you just kind of roll with it and take it as it comes.
For sure. Yeah.
So obviously now, having been in for a year, now going into this year as well, and having time to implement kind of your system and culture and everything else going on, in your eyes, or in your words, what defines NAIT basketball? Like, if someone were to ask, maybe from out here, who maybe doesn't know what NAIT is or who NAIT is, what do you tell them? Like, what defines NAIT basketball in your eyes?
I think, well, it's a little, I guess for me, it'd be like what I want NAIT basketball to be known as, like during my tenure as, the head coach here, is I want it to be viewed as, we play in the ACAC. I think, we're in part of the CCAA, but I don't want it to be, I want it to be viewed as, like, if you come and play at NAIT, you're going to get the same experience as you would if you went to a youth sports school, like a high-level youth sports school, in the sense of we're going to be, training in the off season. Like I'm going to be committed to training guys in the off season. We're getting on the court. It's not like we finish our season in March and okay, see you guys in September kind of thing. Like, I want it to be, I want guys to know who join our program to understand that in terms of quality of training and that sort of stuff, you're going to get that in the off season. Same thing with during the season, where like in a normal season, when, assuming everything was open and available for us,
Right.
we're going to have you on a strength and conditioning program. We're practicing in the preseason before we start conference play, Monday to Saturday type thing. Once we start conference play, like, you're getting the same quality as you would at some of the better U Sports schools. I've had the benefit of being part of the University of Alberta, so which is one of the better U Sports schools, definitely one of the better Canada West schools. So
Right.
I kind of have an idea of what they do. And in terms of like your experience and me and your development as a basketball player, you're going to get the same type of commitment and this from me as a basketball coach as you would going to a high level U Sports school. That's my goal. That's what I want players who are looking to join NAIT to know, that commitment from me as a head coach is going to be there to help you develop as a basketball coach.
Right.
And then, the other thing, like, I just want NAIT to be known as like a team that when you play NAIT, guys are going to go in there and compete at a really high level, like on both ends of the court. When you come and play us, I want opponents to know that they're in for a dogfight that game.
Right.
Like, that's what I want from my players, is like, no matter what your skill level is, what your size is, that sort of thing. Like, one thing we can control is how hard we compete. And being a player who was 5'7", like, that's one thing I had to bring to the court every day. If I didn't come in and compete and wasn't ready to fight, like, I was going to get my butt kicked, because what else did I have? Like, I was a decent athlete, but like, that's my mentality, and that's what I'm looking for from athletes who join our programs, like guys who are ready to compete day in and day out. And it's not just in games. Like, you have to be willing to compete at a high level in practice every day. And it's almost like a skill set you can build. I think you can become a more competitive person, but it takes a certain mindset, and you have to be willing to do that in practices every day, and really make that a focus of yours, is like becoming a better competitor. And you have to have that mindset in practice. So that's what I want NAIT basketball to be known as well. Is like, when you come and play us, that you're coming and playing a group of guys who are ready to compete and battle. And I mean, really battle. And no matter what, like, if we're down by 20, we're up by 20, we're competing for 40 minutes. So those are some of the things I want NAIT to be known as. And like, obviously we're trying to bring in good athletes, trying to bring in good basketball players, and develop them while we're here. But like, I want the NAIT basketball program to be known as guys who are super competitive, who go in and compete day in and day out.
Right.
And guys who are looking to come here, I want them to know that they're going to come here and get a great opportunity to develop as basketball players. And then the last point I want to make too is just like, being a former student at NAIT, NAIT is a great school when it comes to academics. Like, depending on what you want to do with your career, being a polytechnic, we have some great programs here where guys can come in and get a 2-year diploma in health and sciences, or there's engineering programs, or RTA, or we have a business program where you can get your diploma or continue on with your degree. There's some great programs here. Like, my brother went to NAIT, and he's had a really good career. I've had many friends, obviously, who played basketball who are doing great things in their careers. Like, that's the other thing with NAIT. I want guys who are preferably interested in coming and getting, a piece of paper at the end of the day, and walking away and having a great career after basketball.
Right. Like, I've had Dante and Keelan on here before, and they kind of radiate that same thing, the hard work, just by like the commitment to, it's going to be a dogfight no matter what. The practice games, like, if you're coming to NAIT, you're putting in that work, and there's no real off days. Like, you're working to get better, and kind of no matter what your skill set is, you bring that competitive nature to the team, and just that radiates from veteran guys to rookies. And I think everybody's kind of buying into that. And you can see it through those two guys already, with Keelan being a veteran, Dante being a newcomer to the squad. And you already see that competitive spirit kind of radiate through both guys. And I think what you said kind of already speaks to what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you have a group of guys who are willing to compete, to a really high level, and they're also willing to do whatever it takes to ultimately win, you can do a lot of great things. And it sounds simple, but it's so hard it is truly hard. I mean, from my experience, it is hard to get, 12, 15 guys who are committed to doing those things, who are committed to coming in day in and day out and compete at a high level, and then also willing to sacrifice their personal goals for the betterment of the team.
Right.
If you can get those things, you can, obviously skill and athleticism and size and all those things play a factor into winning as well. But if you have those two elements, those two qualities from a team, you can go a long way. So
100%. One more I got for you on the team before we get into one that I ask everybody that I'm particularly interested in to hear your thoughts, given your journalism background covering the ACAC to begin with, plus playing and coaching. Obviously, last year you guys knocked off Lethbridge in the quarterfinals, ended up finishing 4th at provincials. On the heels of how last year played out and the guys you've brought in this year, and I think you can add in the fact that there's no eligibility being used this year with no season, so the potential to have some of the veteran guys back again is always intriguing. What excites you about the future of the program?
I think we've brought in some quality people this year. Like I really enjoy the group of guys we have. I enjoy going into practice every day. I think what excites me is some of the things I was talking about. I think we have a lot of that, certainly not perfect, but the guys who we have a good work ethic. I think they want to win. Right. I think from being around as a basketball player and now a coach, I can tell when guys are kind of faking it and when they actually want to win. Right. And I think I can tell that a lot of the guys on our team, if not all of them, really want to win and they want to compete. So I'm excited to see what we could do with this group. Well, obviously, it's not going to happen this year now, but hopefully next year we have a lot of them, if not all of them, back. And I'm excited for that. I think we have a group of guys we have a nice balance of some young guys and some veterans who I think feel like they have a lot to prove. And really just, I get the feeling, and I know from being around them and obviously being their coach now, that they really want to win. So that's what excites me in the future is just having a group of guys who really want to compete and want to win and seeing what we can do with that. Maybe, maybe a couple of guys end up not coming back next year. We add a couple more and that sort of thing. But hopefully we can just bring in more of those types of basketball players and student athletes who want to be at NAIT, want to compete, want to win. And that's what excites me is I think we have a good core of that right now.
And just kind of like you said, the good core of those kind of pillars that you want to instill in everybody that comes through, and then just kind of build on that and have that radiate through everybody else, and have guys that want to come in, want to compete, want to win, maybe have that bit of a chip on their shoulder to something to prove, and kind of use that to fuel that competitiveness and will to win. And then it's going to attract other players that have that same mindset, and away you guys go. And NAIT is a team that you don't want to face because they're going to come at you every single night with everything they got.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I think, sometimes your players could be your best recruiters as well. So, like-minded people usually want to be around each other. So more guys you can bring in. For me, that's what I value is guys who are competitive, guys who put the team before their individual goals. And guys who want to go to school and, want to get something done academically. Those are the things I value. So that's what I'm looking for when I bring in players. And the more guys I can bring in like that, sometimes they're your best recruiters. Right. Because, players talk and players pay attention and, and like I said, like-minded people want to be around each other. So hopefully the more guys we can get like that, in a perfect world, the easier it is for me to get more players like that in the future. So.
Right. And if they're putting in some good words with other players, it kind of makes it a bit easier for you. So you can kind of put some more attention on other things. And maybe you can get a few extra minutes of sleep here and there once in a while and catch up on all the sleep you lost over the years trying to, the 3:45 a.m. calls.
Yeah, for
Although
sure.
I don't think it works that way, but it'd be nice if
No,
it did
that'd be
somehow.
nice. Yeah.
One last one that I ask everybody, and it's around growing the coverage in Canada because, again, I sound like a broken record. It's nowhere near where it should be. And with yourself having experience in the journalism side of it, covering the ACAC in Woodminster and Red Deer, having played, having coached, how do we get more people paying attention to CCAA and U Sports in Canada? Are there any ideas, suggestions, what you'd like to see happen, see done to kind of get that coverage respect level kind of where it should be or closer to where it should be, I guess?
Yeah, geez, it's such a tough question. Like, I know this has been going on since I started at NAIT in 99, and I remember like this was a battle for us back then, and I'm sure it has been forever. The one thing that I love this year was the CBL being on, having their season on TV. Like, I know that's not U Sports or CCAA, but I think like promoting Canadian basketball, even
Right.
though it's kind of a professional league. I think that's a good step. I think like one thing that I would like to see kind of like from the start is just getting more support from student bodies in university and colleges to begin with. Like being at U of A, for example, we were, when I was there, we're competing for conference championships. We went to nationals the both years I was there, and we don't get a lot of students coming out to our games. So I would like to see just internally within schools themselves, like promoting athletic programs a little bit more, just so we can get more students out to games, get more of the student body out to games, support the school, support the teams a little bit more. Like I know from working in media, for example, like if I know a team, for example, or a program is getting, 1,000, 1,500 people out to games, like let's pretend the university or the NAIT basketball team is getting 1,000 people out to the games. And we hear about it and we see like, wow, NAIT's getting great crowds. Like we're more at global will be more likely to provide coverage for a program like that, just because you feel like as a reporter and as a news station or a sports department or whatever, that this team obviously has some interest, and it's kind of exciting, like to see so many people out to their games. So I think you're more likely to get that coverage if you have more people out. So, and just for the experience of the student athletes, I would like to see schools just really push to get more people out to their games. I think that would be a good start. Something I try to do, like we had Global come out and cover one of our athletes, do kind of a feature on him just like last month.
Right.
A lot of good human interest stories on athletes and on all sorts of teams. So they don't have to be, a guy who's going to play on the national team this summer or anything like that, or who's going to potentially get drafted in the NBA or anything like that. But there's a lot of interesting stories from student athletes, like especially at NAIT, we have guys doing who've gone through all sorts of different paths in their life, and just to get to where they're at. And you could do a lot of things like that to help promote the program or promote student athletes who have a lot of different interesting stories. So I think if coaches and athletic programs are kind of cognizant of that and know their athletes, and if they feel like they have an interesting story, reaching out to local media outlets and things like that regularly and making themselves visible would be beneficial. And then I think the other thing is just doing this sort of thing, like getting on podcasts and things like that, or just using the benefit of social media. Sometimes we don't have to use traditional media to provide exposure for ourselves. We can get, we can get our own names out there. Like I think some of the club programs do a great job. Like I know Good Hoops here in Edmonton do a good job of promoting themselves. Like they do a lot of stuff on social media, cool like highlight packs of individual athletes and things like that. I think that's something that post-secondary institutes can do more of. Like, even doing a feature on an athlete, we could do more of that. We can have athletic departments do a feature on an athlete and post it on our social media accounts, post it on our websites.
Mm-hmm.
Cut highlights and put music to it, whatever,
Right.
like promote ourselves and get it out there. And you can tag different media outlets as well to kind of get make your program and your athletes a little bit more visible. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, there's all sorts of opportunities. There's the opportunities for, especially this year with season being canceled, we have a little bit more time on our hands to
Right.
do our own podcasts or things like that. Like just to kind of get our names out there and things like that. There's all sorts of stuff we can do, I think.
Yeah. I think the student body support, I think, is an interesting one, because I think what schools are offering and what the students want, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding, because I think, like you said, there's got to be a way to get more students out to games and kind of make an identified student section so it's just packed with students behind the visiting bench or something. But I think there is a bit of a discrepancy in what schools think student wants versus what students actually want to get out of a game. So I think there's got to be a way to figure out what the students are looking for to entice them to come to more games, because clearly right now isn't really working. I know there's probably some schools that have a good student representation, but I think for the most part, something's missing the mark here. And I think a lot of, like, again, ties into the universities and the colleges promoting themselves, but they also need to reach out to their student body and see, why are you coming? Why aren't you coming? What can we do to make this seem more enticing for you to come to games?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the perfect scenario is to that, because again, the last thing I think a student wants is another questionnaire sent to their student email that they don't really get anything from. So I think there's a few hurdles to jump over to figure out a perfect solution, which I don't know if there is one.
Yeah, I definitely don't have all the answers. Like one thing from, being at U of A and now at NAIT is just, I'd like to see the athletic programs a little bit more visible around campus, I guess. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but walking around U of A or at NAIT, sometimes it's hard to know that there are teams at the school.
Right.
Like if you're just to walk through the campus, you wouldn't really know that, some of these schools have athletic programs and that sort of thing. So I know, there are probably certain hurdles and stuff that to overcome when it comes to that sort of thing. But and again, I don't have all the answers, but but as a coach, I just would like to see more more promotion, I guess, of our programs and trying to find a way to get more of the student body out to games and providing some support. And like you said, I mean, you do have to make it enticing for students, because not everybody loves to go and sit at a basketball game. If that's all you're selling, then maybe that's not going to convince a lot of students to come out. So there's got to be something else or some other reason for them to come out, perhaps. But I don't know. I guess that's kind of what my my dream would be, but I certainly don't have all the answers in terms of how to make that happen.
Yeah, and then off of that too, like with social media having an endless reach, like there's a lot of little things you can do, player features, whatever it is, highlights, Q&As, really anything you want to do. And I think, like you said, now with no season, I think now is the perfect time to do it, because we all have a bit of extra time. And I think now it's just as important as ever too, because you want to keep the programs in the light as much as you can, because by the time games come back, it's going to be a year and a half since a regular season game has been played. You don't want to lose any momentum you had last year, because for the last year and a half, you've been quiet. And I think now is the time to try those ideas you've had, whether it is the Q&As, whether it is interviews or 60-second interviews or Instagram takeovers or whatever it is you want to try. Now is the time to do it, and then figure out what works, what doesn't, And then when the season rolls around, you can plan everything and have it build off the momentum you've had now. Because if you're quiet and you try to do it in September, no one's really you're starting from scratch essentially.
Well, that's an excellent point. Yeah, I mean, you could look at this year as an opportunity to try some different things and see what works and what doesn't. So, yeah, no, that's a good point.
I have one of those every so often. That's my good point for the day. I think I've used it early, but that's okay. Is there anything else you want to add in about NAIT, about yourself, about the team, anything we missed that you want to bring a bit of extra light to before we wrap it up and get you back to your Monday?
No, not really. I mean, like I said, I think we covered most of it. I'm just, happy to have the opportunity to be part of the program. I just think I really believe NAIT is a great school. I'm not just saying that because I'm, the men's basketball coach. NAIT is a great school. I'm proud and really excited and happy that I've had the opportunity to be the head coach of the men's basketball team here. I think there's, I do believe in the school. I think it's a great program where student athletes can come in, get a great experience from a basketball perspective, get a great experience from an academic perspective. And ultimately, when I'm finished as a head coach here, whenever that is, I want to look back and know that we've brought in student athletes who had a great experience on the basketball court, and then also finished their academics and moved on with their careers and are doing great things in, all sorts of different industries. So, I just really believe in the school and in the basketball program. So.
We'll leave it at that then. I will let that be the last word, but I want to thank you again for doing this, Coach. This was a ton of fun. And like I said, we've had a few of your players on before, so it's nice to get kind of your side of things, and everything's kind of lined up with what you're trying to build. So really appreciate you taking the time, and anytime you want to do this again, there's always a spot here for you.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tyler.